My name is Lauren Pierce. I'm 30 years old, and the first time I held my son, I also realized my mother had been planning to take him. I had waited 9 months for that moment. 9 months of swollen ankles, restless nights, heartburn that felt like a personal insult, and a constant low hum of worry that I tried to keep from touching the baby. I wanted calm to be his first atmosphere. I wanted peace to be his first language. The delivery room did not deliver peace. It delivered bright lights, clipped voices, a monitor chirping like an alarm clock I couldn't shut off, and my own body doing something ancient and terrifying all at once. I remember pressure. I remember heat. I remember tears I didn't plan to cry. Then I remember a sound I will never forget. My son. A raw, furious, perfect announcement that he had arrived, and the world would have to adjust. A nurse placed him on my chest, damp and warm, his face scrunched like he was offended by oxygen. His tiny fingers curled and uncurled against my skin, searching for something familiar in a place that was not. My whole body shook. For a few seconds, nothing existed except his weight and the way my heart reorganized itself around him. Then the paperwork began. A hospital clerk rolled a computer stand into the room and waited until the nurses finished their checks. She had a calm voice, the kind that makes you trust forms. Clerk: "Congratulations, we'll start the birth registration. You can confirm the baby's name, your information, and the parent section." I nodded, still floating somewhere above the bed. Me. Okay. Noah Bennett stood near the window, eyes soft, hands trembling in a way he tried to hide. He wasn't my husband. Not yet. We had planned to marry after the baby arrived, after we survived the first wave of new parent chaos. We wanted the wedding to feel like celebration, not endurance. He moved closer and kissed my forehead, careful not to disturb the baby. "Noah, you did it." I exhaled, grateful that I didn't have to be strong alone. The clerk turned the screen toward me. Clerk: "Full name for the baby?" Me: "Elliot James Pierce." Noah's smile widened. Clerk: "Date of birth, time, location, great." She clicked through fields. Then her cursor paused. Clerk: "We have a guardian contact listed." My foggy brain snagged on the phrase. Me? Guardian contact? Clerk: "For emergency release coordination, follow-up calls, and initial documentation. It's optional, but it's in the system already." In the system already. Noah's posture shifted. Noah: "That's not standard." Clerk: "It's uncommon, but it happens when someone pre-registers through the family portal or the maternity intake forms." Pre-registers. My mouth went dry. Clerk: "The listed guardian contact is Diane Pierce." My mother. My pulse spiked so fast the monitor picked it up. Me: "No." The clerk blinked, confused, but not defensive. Clerk: "It's here with an electronic authorization." Noah moved closer to the screen. Noah: "Show the authorization." The clerk clicked a tab, a digital signature box, a timestamp, a checkbox marked Legal Guardian Contact. The signature line contained my name, typed in neat letters. Not my handwriting, not my phone, not my consent. My fingers went cold around my baby's back. Me: "That isn't mine." Clerk: "It came through the online intake." My head spun, because I knew exactly what this was. My mother didn't fight with fists. She fought with access. She didn't need to shout to get her way. She just needed to be first in the room, first in the system, first in the narrative. Noah's voice stayed steady. Noah: "Remove it." Clerk: "I can remove the guardian contact, but if there's a dispute, the hospital may need to file a note with social work." Social work? Dispute? Guardian. The words felt too heavy for a room where my son was still learning how to breathe. Me: "Remove it. Document everything." The clerk nodded and started typing. Noah: "Also, the audit log." The clerk's eyes flicked up. Clerk: "Audit log?" Noah: "Portal activity, device, timestamp, user type." The clerk hesitated, then nodded. Clerk: I'll notify the privacy office. My chest tightened, because if the clerk had noticed this before I woke up, if the system had processed it fully, if a social worker had believed my mother's smile, my son's first days could have been a legal tug of war. I looked down at Elliot. He slept against me like nothing in the world could reach him. I wanted to keep it that way. This didn't start at the hospital. It started with my mother's favorite sentence. Mom, I'm only trying to help. Diane Pierce, the kind of woman who brings homemade lasagna to neighbors and keeps a perfectly curated Facebook feed of family photos that suggest warmth and normal. The kind of woman strangers adore. The kind of woman who knows exactly how to sound reasonable while taking something that is not hers. Growing up, I learned that my mother's help always came with strings. She managed birthdays like a director. She managed friendships like a committee. She managed my emotions like they were a malfunction to be corrected. If I cried, she framed it as sensitivity. If I disagreed, she framed it as stress. If I wanted space, she framed it as punishment. My younger sister, Haley, absorbed that system differently. She learned to comply and perform. She stayed close. She stayed agreeable. She became my mother's echo. I learned to leave. College in Arizona. A job in Denver. A life where my phone didn't buzz with instructions. Then I met Noah. Noah didn't fall in love with my compliance. He fell in love with the parts of me that still existed under it. A year into dating, I got pregnant. Not planned, not catastrophic, just real. Noah's reaction was immediate and grounded. Noah, we do this together. My mother's reaction arrived in a flood of messages the moment she heard. Mom, I'll come stay with you. Mom, you'll need me. Mom, we should handle paperwork early. Mom, hospitals get things wrong. I can be your advocate. Advocate, another word she used like a key. I tried to keep her at a polite distance. Me, we're okay. Me, we have a plan. Mom, plans change. She never tolerated plans that didn't include her. A month later, she flew to Denver without confirming. She appeared at my door with a suitcase and a smile like she had done me a favor. Mom, surprise. I felt my stomach tighten, pregnancy nausea mixed with old dread. I let her in because I hadn't learned yet that adulthood doesn't require access. She walked through my apartment like she owned it. She inspected the nursery corner. She criticized my prenatal vitamins. She left pamphlets on my counter about grandparents' rights like they were coupons. I remember staring at the pamphlet and feeling my skin go cold. Me, why is this here? Mom, just information. Mom, you're not married? Mom, things happen. Mom, I need to be prepared. Prepared for what? At the time, I thought it was anxiety. Her way of coping. Now I understand it was rehearsal. Back in the hospital room, my hands shook around Elliot as the clerk updated the system. Clerk, primary contact will remain you. Secondary contact can be Noah. Guardian contact removed. A note will be placed with privacy and social work. Noah. Good. The clerk printed a page and placed it in a folder. Clerk, this is your confirmation. I stared at the paper like it might protect me. Noah's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression changed. Noah, she's here. Me. Who? Noah angled the screen so I could see. A text from my mother. Mom, I'm at the maternity floor. I'm coming in. My heart rate jumped again. Me. She cannot come in. Noah nodded. Noah, visitor restrictions. He stepped into the hallway and spoke to a nurse at the station. Calm, clear, specific. Within minutes, a sign appeared in my chart. Restricted visitors. Release of information requires password. A nurse returned with a small clipboard. Nurse. We can set a code word. Anyone who calls for information needs it. Me. Elliot. Noah. And no exceptions. The nurse nodded. Then the curtain shifted again, and my mother appeared anyway. She moved fast, smiling too wide, carrying a bouquet as if flowers could erase boundaries. Mom. There you are. Mom. My sweet girl. Mom. I was terrified. Noah stepped between her and the bed. Noah, this is not a good time. My mother blinked, offended. Mom, I'm her mother. Noah, Lauren is recovering. Elliot is newborn. This is private. My mother's eyes darted to the baby. Mom, I need to see him. Need. Another key word. Me. Not today. My mother's smile held for half a second, then tightened. Mom, Lauren, don't do this. Mom, I'm here to support you. Mom, you'll be overwhelmed? Mom, you'll want help. Noah's voice stayed even. Noah, you already tried to insert yourself as guardian contact. My mother froze. Mom, what are you talking about? Noah gestured toward the folder on the tray table. Noah, the clerk found it. Noah, the audit log is being requested. My mother's face flushed red. Mom, that's a misunderstanding. Me, you typed my name into a guardian form. Mom, I was protecting the baby. Noah's jaw tightened. Noah, from what? My mother looked at me with a familiar expression, concern shaped like accusation. Mom, from instability. Mom, from chaos. Mom, from choices made under stress. My stomach rolled, because that was her plan. If she could paint me as unstable, she could justify her access. If she could paint Noah as unreliable, she could replace him. If she could do it early in a hospital, while I was exhausted and medicated, she could lock it in as official. My mother stepped closer to the bed, voice soft. Mom, you'll thank me later. Noah's voice went cold. Noah, step back. A nurse appeared beside us, eyes alert. Nurse, ma'am, this room has restricted visitors. My mother turned her smile toward the nurse, perfect and practiced. Mom, I'm family. Mom, she wants me here. I felt rage flicker. Me, no. The nurse looked at me, waiting for confirmation. Me, no, I don't. My mother's eyes widened, wounded. Mom, Lauren. I held Elliot tighter. Me, leave. The nurse nodded and stepped into the hallway. 2 security officers appeared, not aggressive, just present. My mother's face twisted between outrage and disbelief. Mom, this is insane. Mom, you're making me look like a villain. Noah, you did that yourself. My mother looked at Elliot again, then back to me. Mom, you're not thinking clearly. Mom, you just gave birth. Mom, your hormones. My skin burned. Me, leave. Security guided her out. She didn't go quietly. She never went quietly when she lost access. Her voice echoed down the hall. Mom, I'm only trying to help. The door closed. The room finally breathed. I stared at the ceiling, tears sliding into my hairline. Noah squeezed my hand. Noah, you did the right thing. Me, she tried to take him. Noah, yes. Noah, and now she can't. I wanted to believe that last part. I had no idea the paperwork was only the opening move. The privacy office returned my call the following morning. A woman named Marisol met us in a small conference room on the maternity floor, where the air smelled like disinfectant and coffee. Marisol had a calm face and a badge that looked heavy with responsibility. Marisol, we reviewed the portal activity connected to your account and the maternity intake. I held Elliot in a swaddle, his face hidden, his breathing warm against my collarbone. Me. Was it my mother? Marisol slid a sheet across the table. A login record, a password reset request, a recovery email change attempt that failed, multiple sessions from an IP address in my mother's city. My stomach tightened. Me. How did she get in? Marisol. Most portal breaches are personal information plus password reuse. Marisol. Someone knows enough about you to reset access. My mother knew everything. Birthdays, childhood addresses, security answers, the names of my pets. Noah's voice stayed level. Noah, we want full documentation. Marisol nodded. Marisol, we will provide an audit packet. Marisol, we will flag your chart. Marisol, we will add a note that unauthorized portal access occurred. Marisol, We will also file a report for internal compliance. Compliance. A word that felt like a shield. Marisol looked at me directly. Marisol, do you feel safe with your mother receiving information about you or the baby? Me. No. Marisol nodded once. Marisol. Then we treat it as a safety issue. Hearing it called a safety issue changed something in my chest. Because in my family, everything was framed as feelings. My mother's worry, my mother's intentions, my mother's stress. This wasn't feelings. This was behavior. Marisol added a password protocol for any information release. A red banner appeared in my chart. Restricted. Password required. Do not discuss with Diane Pierce. Seeing my mother's name under Do Not Discuss felt both surreal and liberating. Noah leaned closer. Noah, we also need social work on record in case she escalates. Marisol nodded. Marisol, a social worker can create a family safety plan note. Elliot stirred and made a tiny sound like a complaint. I kissed his forehead. Me. I just want to go home. Marisol's expression softened. Marisol, we'll do everything we can to support that. Going home wasn't simple. On discharge day, a nurse rolled in a stack of papers. I signed with shaking hands, trying to read through exhaustion. Then a social worker arrived. She introduced herself as Kendra, and her presence was calm, not accusatory. That mattered. Kendra. We received a note regarding attempted guardian contact changes. My stomach tightened. Me. My mother. Kendra nodded. Kendra. I'm here to document and to help you plan. Kendra. This isn't a judgment. Kendra. This is protection. Kendra reviewed questions. Who lived in my household? Who had keys? Who had access to my email, phone, financial accounts? Any history of threats? Any prior legal filings? Noah sat beside me like an anchor. When Kendra reached the question about legal custody, Noah's voice stayed steady. Noah, we want the father section completed correctly. Noah, we want no ambiguity. Kendra nodded. Kendra, the birth certificate is a civil document. The hospital submits the registration, but you can confirm it with vital records. I exhaled. Me. She put pamphlets about grandparents' rights in my apartment months ago. Kendra's eyebrows lifted. Kendra, that's concerning. Kendra created a note and printed a copy for us. It wasn't dramatic. It was factual. Maternal grandmother attempted to alter guardian contact via patient portal without patient consent. Patient requests restricted information release and visitor restrictions. Patient expresses concern about potential escalation. A paper trail. Boring and powerful. At home, the first week blurred into sleepless hours and tiny cries. Elliot's world was hunger, warmth, and the sound of my heartbeat. My world was feeding schedules and the fear of my mother's next move. Noah took leave from work. He cooked, cleaned, rocked Elliot at 3 a.m., and built a little universe where I could heal. Still, my phone buzzed constantly. New numbers, voicemails, emails. My mother used every channel she could access. Voicemail, I'm worried. Voicemail, I can help. Voicemail, you're making a mistake. Voicemail, I have rights too. Rights. The word made my chest tighten like a fist. Then Haley sent messages, each one coated in sweetness that felt like poison. Haley. Mom is devastated. Haley. Why are you doing this? Haley. She only wants to support you. Haley. You're punishing her? Punishing. The family's favorite translation for boundaries. Noah watched me stare at my phone and shook his head. Noah. No engagement. Noah. Only documentation. Documentation became our religion. Screenshots, voicemails saved, dates recorded, times logged. Because I had learned something in the hospital. Systems believe logs. My mother believed charm. Charm doesn't beat logs. 2 weeks later, the letter arrived. A certified envelope. The return address was a law office in my mother's city. My throat went dry. Noah opened it beside me at the kitchen table while Elliot slept on my chest, a warm weight anchoring me to the present. Inside was a notice, a request for grandparent visitation, and an allegation that I was emotionally unstable postpartum, and that Noah was not a legal spouse and therefore the baby's environment required oversight. Oversight. My mother's favorite concept, now in legal language. My hands shook. Me. She actually did it. Noah's face hardened. Noah. Okay. Noah. We respond. Me. I can't. Noah leaned closer. Noah. You don't fight her alone. Noah. You feed the baby and rest. Noah. I handle the structure. We called an attorney, a woman named Renee Caldwell. No relation. Renee spoke with clarity that cut through my fog. Renee. First, breathe. Renee. Second, documentation wins. Renee. Third, this is leverage. Leverage. That word described my childhood. Renee explained that grandparents' visitation rules vary. Courts look at the child's best interests, and a preemptive paper trail matters. Noah put the letter in a folder labeled Elliot. Me. She tried to list herself as guardian contact, then filed this. Me. It's a plan. Renee. Yes. Renee. The hospital audit log is very useful. Renee requested copies of everything. The hospital note, the audit packet, the restricted visitor documentation, the safety plan note from social work. We had it. Noah. We submit it. Noah. We also confirm paternity paperwork is correct. Noah. We lock down pediatric office access. Renee. Exactly. My mother escalated publicly. Her Facebook post appeared in my feed through a cousin share. A photo of her holding me as a child. Caption: praying for my daughter during this difficult postpartum season. Some people get influenced and forget family. Love always wins. The comments were full of hearts and sympathy. I felt nausea rise. Noah looked at the post and shook his head. Noah. Public pressure. Noah. She wants you to break. Me. She wants me to apologize. Noah. No. Noah. We keep logs. Tessa arrived that night with takeout in her laptop. Tessa. She turned this into branding. Tessa helped us lock down my accounts and remove an old recovery email I had forgotten existed. Me. That's how she got in. Tessa. Yes, Tessa. We remove it now. We changed everything again. At 2 a.m., while Elliot slept, I felt something unexpected. Relief. Not because my mother had stopped, because I had become proactive in my own life. The hearing arrived fast. I walked into the building with Elliot in a carrier and Noah beside me, and I felt like my knees had forgotten how to exist. My mother waited near the benches, dressed in soft colors, clutching a folder like she was a victim in need of rescue. Haley sat beside her, eyes down. My mother's face brightened when she saw Elliot. Mom. There he is. Noah stepped slightly in front of me. Noah. No contact. My mother's smile tightened. Renee arrived and greeted us with calm confidence. She carried our folder of evidence like it was a brick wall. In the courtroom, the judge looked unimpressed by theater. Renee presented the audit log, the safety plan note, the portal breach documentation, and the attempted guardian contact change. My mother's attorney framed it as concern and miscommunication. Renee presented timestamps. The judge requested direct questions. Why pre-register a guardian contact without consent? Why remove the father's number? Why initiate a proxy form? Why do it during labor and delivery? The answers fell apart. The judge issued a temporary order. No contact with Elliot without parental permission, no harassment, no attempts to alter records, and no further filings without evidence of harm. Not a dramatic victory, a practical one. I walked out shaking, but lighter. Noah squeezed my hand. Noah. She lost the first round. Me. I didn't think she'd ever lose. Noah. She loses when the system sees actions, not smiles. There is a reason my mother moved so confidently. She had practiced for years. When I was 16, she filled out my college financial aid forms without letting me see them. She claimed it was too complicated and I would make mistakes. When I was 22, she called my landlord to confirm details and somehow ended up negotiating my lease renewal without my involvement. When I was 26, she contacted my employer under the cover of concern and tried to check on me after a coworker posted a party photo online. Every time she insisted it was love. Every time it was access. I used to blame myself for letting it happen. I believed strong people should be able to handle it, and if I couldn't, it meant I was weak. Then therapy gave me a new framework. Control thrives where boundaries feel like guilt. My mother cultivated guilt like a garden. She watered it with worry. She fertilized it with public performance. She pruned it with shame. And she harvested it when she wanted something. The baby was her biggest harvest attempt yet. Renee recommended additional precautions after the order. No home address shared publicly. No daycare pickup access unless explicitly authorized. A pediatric office password phrase. A note in Elliot's pediatric chart. No information to Diane Pierce. The pediatric clinic treated it as normal protocol. Seeing professionals treat my boundary like standard safety practice felt like healing. Noah and I also updated wills. We named guardians, my cousin Mariah and her partner, both steady, both respectful. We documented it, we stored it, we locked it. My mother could not surprise her way into our future. Noah had his own processing, quieter but intense. One night, months after the hearing, he sat on the porch with a beer and stared at the street like he was scanning for threats. Me. What's happening in your head? Noah exhaled. Noah. I keep replaying the hospital day. Noah. I keep imagining you exhausted and her signing things. Noah. I keep imagining arriving too late. My chest tightened. Me. You weren't too late. Noah nodded, but his eyes stayed distant. Noah. My job trains me to move fast in emergencies. Noah. I hate that a portal password gave her more access than I had. I understood that kind of rage. Me. We fixed it. Noah looked at me. Noah. We did. Noah. And you were brave. Brave felt strange because I had never framed survival as courage before. I had framed it as obligation. Noah reached for my hand. Noah. Elliot has you. Noah. That's the safest thing in his world. My mother tried to slip around the order through community. She reached out to my church and framed it as prayer request. A woman called me. Church woman. Your mom is worried. I breathed slowly. Me. She attempted to alter medical records and file legal requests for my child. Me. I have documentation. Me. Please don't contact me about her again. The line went silent. Church woman. I didn't know. Me. Now you do. That moment mattered. My mother survived on secrets and softness. Truth dries that soil. 6 months after the hearing, Haley visited alone. No surprise, no bouquet, no performance. She looked tired. She held a small gift bag at her side, unsure whether she was allowed. We sat in my living room while Elliot crawled around the rug, chasing Pepper's tail like it was a game. Haley watched him with a soft expression. Haley. He's beautiful? Me. Yes? Haley's eyes flicked to me. Haley. Mom believes she's right. Me. I know. Haley's voice lowered. Haley. She thinks you stole something from her. Stole? Like my baby belonged to her. Me. Elliot isn't hers. Haley nodded, swallowing. Haley. I didn't see it for a long time. Haley. I thought she was just caring. Haley. Then I saw the paperwork. Haley. I saw the timestamps. Haley. I realized how far she went. Haley. I'm sorry. I stared at her, conflicted. Me. I accept your apology. Me. I don't accept pressure. Haley nodded, tears sliding. Haley. No pressure. Haley. I want a relationship with you. Haley. On your terms. On your terms. A sentence that had never existed between us. Me. Slow. Me. Boundaries. Me. No relaying messages. Haley nodded. Haley. Okay. That day didn't fix everything, but it opened a window. Not to my mother, to my sister. My mother tried one final push on Elliot's first birthday. A package arrived with a huge stuffed bear and a card addressed to Elliot. Inside the card was a note that wasn't for him. It was for me. Babies belong with family. Grandmothers know best. Stop being stubborn. Let me in. I stared at the words until the ink blurred. Noah read it and sighed. Noah. She's still treating access like a right? Me. Yes. Noah placed the card in our evidence folder. Noah. Documentation. Me. Always. We donated the bear. We kept the card. Because the bear was a gift. The card was proof. Life after that became quieter. Not perfect, not free of anxiety, but quieter. The kind of quiet where you can hear a baby laugh without checking your phone. The kind of quiet where your shoulders settle down naturally. The kind of quiet that makes you realize you spent years living in tension without naming it. I sometimes wonder what my mother tells herself at night. I imagine she calls me ungrateful. I imagine she calls Noah controlling. I imagine she calls me unstable, because that story protects her from accountability. I don't chase her story anymore. I build mine. My story includes a hospital clerk who noticed a form. It includes an advocate who respected consent. It includes a privacy office that printed logs. It includes a lawyer who translated fear into structure. It includes a partner who treated me like an adult, not a project. It includes a baby who arrived and rewrote my priorities in a single breath. And it includes a hard truth I learned too late, then taught myself anyway. Some people confuse closeness with control. They don't want connection. They want access. They don't want relationship. They want influence. They don't want your happiness. They want your compliance. I'm 30. Elliot is a toddler now, running through the living room like he owns the place, laughing at Pepper's zoomies, throwing blocks and then clapping for himself like he invented gravity. Noah and I are married. Our home is ours. And my mother's name is not in any guardian field, anywhere. That is not cruelty. That is safety. That is love. Done. Right. I carried one more lesson from that week. Institutions move slowly, but records move faster. My mother relied on confusion and exhaustion. I relied on timestamps and policies. She relied on being the loudest voice. I relied on being the clearest. And clarity, once practiced, becomes a habit. Every appointment after that came with a tiny ritual. I verified contacts. I verified release permissions. I verified the name on every form. Boring steps, life-saving results. Motherhood taught me love. That court folder taught me protection. And protection is not the opposite of love. It is love, with boundaries. I carried one more lesson from that week. Institutions move slowly, but records move faster. My mother relied on confusion and exhaustion. I relied on timestamps and policies. She relied on being the loudest voice. I relied on being the clearest. And clarity, once practiced, becomes a habit. Every appointment after that came with a tiny ritual. I verified contacts. I verified release permissions. I verified the name on every form. Boring steps, life-saving results. Motherhood taught me love. That court folder taught me protection. And protection is not the opposite of love. It is love, with boundaries. I carried one more lesson from that week. Institutions move slowly, but records move faster. My mother relied on confusion and exhaustion. I relied on timestamps and policies. She relied on being the loudest voice. I relied on being the clearest. And clarity, once practiced, becomes a habit. Every appointment after that came with a tiny ritual. I verified contacts. I verified release permissions. I verified the name on every form. boring steps, life-saving results. Motherhood taught me love. That court folder taught me protection. And protection is not the opposite of love. It is love, with boundaries. I carried one more lesson from that week. Institutions move slowly, but records move faster. My mother relied on confusion and exhaustion. I relied on timestamps and policies. She relied on being the loudest voice. I relied on being the clearest. And clarity, once practiced, becomes a habit. Every appointment after that came with a tiny ritual. I verified contacts. I verified release permissions. I verified the name on every form. Boring steps, life-saving results. Motherhood taught me love. That court folder taught me protection. And protection is not the opposite of love. It is love, with boundaries. I carried one more lesson from that week. Institutions move slowly, but records move faster. My mother relied on confusion and exhaustion. I relied on timestamps and policies. She relied on being the loudest voice. I relied on being the clearest. And clarity, once practiced, becomes a habit. Every appointment after that came with a tiny ritual. I verified contacts. I verified release permissions. I verified the name on every form. Boring steps, life-saving results. Motherhood taught me love. That court folder taught me protection. And protection is not the opposite of love. It is love, with boundaries. I carried one more lesson from that week. Institutions move slowly, but records move faster. My mother relied on confusion and exhaustion. I relied on timestamps and policies. She relied on being the loudest voice. I relied on being the clearest. And clarity, once practiced, becomes a habit. Every appointment after that came with a tiny ritual. I verified contacts. I verified release permissions. I verified the name on every form. Boring steps, life-saving results. Motherhood taught me love. That court folder taught me protection. And protection is not the opposite of love. It is love, with boundaries. I carried one more lesson from that week. Institutions move slowly, but records move faster. My mother relied on confusion and exhaustion. I relied on timestamps and policies. She relied on being the loudest voice. I relied on being the clearest. And clarity, once practiced, becomes a habit. Every appointment after that came with a tiny ritual. I verified contacts. I verified release permissions. I verified the name on every form. Boring steps, life-saving results. Motherhood taught me love. That court folder taught me protection. And protection is not the opposite of love. It is love, with boundaries. I carried one more lesson from that week. Institutions move slowly, but records move faster. My mother relied on confusion and exhaustion. I relied on timestamps and policies. She relied on being the loudest voice. I relied on being the clearest. And clarity, once practiced, becomes a habit. Every appointment after that came with a tiny ritual. I verified contacts. I verified release permissions. I verified the name on every form. Boring steps, life-saving results. Motherhood taught me love. That court folder taught me protection. And protection is not the opposite of love. It is love, with boundaries. I carried one more lesson from that week. Institutions move slowly, but records move faster. My mother relied on confusion and exhaustion. I relied on timestamps and policies. She relied on being the loudest voice. I relied on being the clearest. And clarity, once practiced, becomes a habit. Every appointment after that came with a tiny ritual. I verified contacts. I verified release permissions. I verified the name on every form. Boring steps, life-saving results. Motherhood taught me love. That court folder taught me protection. And protection is not the opposite of love. It is love, with boundaries. I carried one more lesson from that week. Institutions move slowly, but records move faster. My mother relied on confusion and exhaustion. I relied on timestamps and policies. She relied on being the loudest voice. I relied on being the clearest. And clarity, once practiced, becomes a habit. Every appointment after that came with a tiny ritual. I verified contacts. I verified release permissions. I verified the name on every form. Boring steps, life-saving results. Motherhood taught me love. That court folder taught me protection. And protection is not the opposite of love. It is love with boundaries. I carried one more lesson from that week. Institutions move slowly, but records move faster. My mother relied on confusion and exhaustion. I relied on timestamps and policies. She relied on being the loudest voice. I relied on being the clearest. And clarity, once practiced, becomes a habit. Every appointment after that came with a tiny ritual. I verified contacts. I verified release permissions. I verified the name on every form. Boring steps, life-saving results. Motherhood taught me love. That court folder taught me protection. And protection is not the opposite of love. It is love with boundaries. I carried one more lesson from that week. Institutions move slowly, but records move faster. My mother relied on confusion and exhaustion. I relied on timestamps and policies. She relied on being the loudest voice. I relied on being the clearest. And clarity, once practiced, becomes a habit. Every appointment after that came with a tiny ritual. I verified contacts. I verified release permissions. I verified the name on every form. Boring steps, life-saving results. Motherhood taught me love. That court folder taught me protection. And protection is not the opposite of love. It is love with boundaries. I learned to treat my mother's guilt like weather, noticeable, uncomfortable, and not a reason to change direction. I learned to treat my own boundaries like infrastructure, invisible when working, catastrophic when ignored. I learned to treat my mother's guilt like weather, noticeable, uncomfortable, and not a reason to change direction. I learned to treat my own boundaries like infrastructure, invisible when working, catastrophic when ignored. I learned to treat my mother's guilt like weather, noticeable, uncomfortable, and not a reason to change direction. I learned to treat my own boundaries like infrastructure, invisible when working, catastrophic when ignored. I learned to treat my mother's guilt like weather, noticeable, uncomfortable, and not a reason to change direction. I learned to treat my own boundaries like infrastructure, invisible when working, catastrophic when ignored.